Hello everyone. Welcome back once again to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to practice grammar, that how sentences are made in English language. So the today's topic is subject-verb agreement. Agreement mistake, that how subject agrees to a verb, whether a subject will be taking singular verb or a plural verb. So let's have a look at this right now. My first rule that of subject verb agreement is that use the verb according to first subject or first noun rather than second subject. So what you are to do, that you are to use the verb according to the first subject rather than second subject in the following cases. So what those cases are, these are some of the words: as well as, along with, together with, besides, expect, no less than, in addition to. Well, if these words, which I wrote in the black marker, if these words join two subjects together, you are to use the verb according to first subject rather than second subject. Let's have a look at the example, that how this should have been used. The example of it is: the politician along with the politician along with the newsman is an or on leave these days. So what should be the right answer? Please write the right answer in the comment box. So what I told you, that the rule is that when these words joins two subjects, here politician is a subject, newsman is another subject. So what you are to do, you are to use the verb according to first subject. Here the first subject is politician, not politicians. It means your first subject is singular, so you are to use the singular verb because your first subject is singular. So should we use is, am, or are? Yes, we should use is rather than using am or are. So another example, let me write down another example. Let's say that I, along with, instead of using this expression, let's use I with my parents. I with my parents is, am, or are going for a trip. Please write the answer in the comment box and let me know what is the right answer. So have a look at this sentence, or let's study this one. I with. So here the word with is joining two subjects together. The first subject is I, the second subject is my parents. So according to this rule, what you are to do, you are to use the verb according to first subject. So the first subject is I. So what do we use with I? What verb we use with I? We use am. So the right answer should be am. I, along with my parents, am going for a trip. So this is the right answer. So if you are to use these expressions, you are to use verb according to the first subject. So couple of examples have been mentioned here. Now let's move to the next rule. Use the verb use the verb according to second subject, according to second subject or noun rather than first subject or noun in the following cases. So what those cases are, those are neither nor. These are correlative conjunctions: neither nor, either or, whether or. So if these two conjunctions, or this if this correlative conjunction joins two sentences, I'm sorry to say two subjects together, what you are to do, you are to use the verb according to the second subject. So let's study it in the form of a sentence. Neither the nurse, neither the nurse nor the doctors, right? So here, doctor is a subject, nurse is an other subject. So these two are subjects, and these subjects are being joined by what? Neither nor, right? So if two subjects are joined by neither nor, either or, whether or, you are to do what? You are to use verb according to the second subject. So here the second subject is plural, that is doctors. So what you are to do, you are to use the plural verb rather than using the second verb. Why? Because your second subject is plural, right? So should we use like or likes? In present simple or present indefinite tenses, what we do for singular subject, we use base form of verb plus s or es. So here the subject is plural, the second subject is plural, so we are to use the plural verb, that is like. Okay, so this is how you are to use the first according to first subject. How, what are those expressions that you are to use the verb according to first expression, and if you are to use the second according to the second subject, so those are the expressions that what I have already written here, right? So I hope it makes sense to all of you. So we're gonna move forward to something else, and before we move forward to something different, I'm gonna give you another example of this rule. For example, he, either he, let's say this one, either he or I is, am, or are wrong. So what should be the right answer here? Either he or I. So the second subject is I. So should we use is, am, or are? So what we are to do, we are to use am. Why? Because am is followed by I. So either he or I am wrong. I hope it makes sense to each and every one of you. So if you do have any question, you can write the questions in the comment box. And now we are to move forward to some more rules of subject verb agreement. Let me write down some of those rules. So there are some expressions. Before we moving forward to the rules, let me tell you some of those expressions. The where to you are to use the singular verb or the plural verb. For example, the number of uh, number of, right? The number of plus the number of plus plural subject, or we can say plural noun, plus singular verb, right? The number of plus plural subject plus singular verb. A number of plus plural subject and plural verb. So these are some of the very serious, or we can say that serious kind of mistakes that most of the writers they commit when they are writing anything, descriptive writing, narrative writing, or whatever the writing they are doing. So let's practice it in the form of some sentences. For example, in a book, intermediate part 2, that is, there is a lesson that is what we call the dying sun, the very first chapter, page number 1, first paragraph, line number 4, there is a sentence. Let me write down at least some part of it. And the total number of stars in the universe is am a something like the number or total number of grains of sand on all the seashore of the world. Right. Let's study this sentence now. And the total number of stars in the universe is am or are. Right. The rule is the number of and the total number of. This is the expression that has been used here. The number of subject will be plural. Yes, the subject has been plural here, that has been used here. In the universe, verbs should be singular. In the universe is am or are. So what I mentioned you that if you are to use this expression, the number of, you are to use plural subject, which I have been used here. The number of subject is plural, but the verb should be singular. So here the verb should be singular, and the total number of stars in the universe is something like the total number of grains of sand on all the seashore of the world, right? So the number of plural subject but singular verb, okay? Grains of sand. You may have come across this rule as well, right? This is the rule of actually the noun, right? So the sand, the word is sand. Do you know that what is the plural of sand? Because in English, right, most of the people claim that when you are to make the plural of any noun, what you do, you use s along with that word, but it's not the same in all the cases. But there are some of the cases that you are to use only s. Let's say that toys, right? But there are some expressions, or there are some of the nouns that you have to use some different words to make their plurals. For example, san, let's say, and there are some other words like information. There can be like another word, something like furniture, advice, abuse, mischief, right? There can be a couple more as well. But today's topic is not something of noun. I'm just going to tell you just brief, plurals or some of the words plural, that how you can use, or how some nouns can take some qualifying words along with them. Sand. So the plural of sand is, that is grains of sand. Okay. Now, information. What is the plural of information is? That is pieces of information. Furniture. What is the plural of it? Furniture. Articles of furniture, etc. Okay. And advice. Pieces of advice. Okay. And there can be some abuse. Acts of abuse. Okay, right? So the number of and a number of, right? A number of students are absent from the class. Okay, so the number of and a number of have been differentiated. I hope that you all of you can understand that what I wrote over here right in front of you. And now let's practice subject verb agreement in the form of some sentences, and from these sentences I'll let you know some of the rules that how subject agrees to the verb, like singular verb or the plural verb. So let's have a look at some of the sentences that what I wrote for you. The very first one is handwriting in these paragraphs is am or are horrible, right? Handwriting, here, the subject is handwriting. Handwriting in these paragraphs. Most of the learners or most of the writers, when they are to write something, they commit this mistake. They consider that this word is the plural one, so we are to use the plural verb. No, This is wrong. Here the main subject is handwriting, right? So you are to use the verb according to handwriting. Handwriting in these paragraphs. So the main thing that is being discussed here is handwriting. So handwriting in these paragraphs is horrible. Okay, now the expression of mosques, houses, and parks is or are not without some effect. So let's study this sentence. The expression of mosques. So when you are to join some nouns with commas, you are to use the same noun. This is another rule. This is what we call the law of parallelism, right? The law of parallelism is what exactly the law of parallelism is, that you are to use the same nouns. If you are to connect different nouns with commas or and, you are to use the same noun. If you have used the singular noun, your other nouns should also be singular. But right now here, what I use the plural nouns, and the rest of the nouns, they are also plurals. Okay, so this is what we call law of parallelism, right? The expression of, here the main subject is expression. There are some learners who certainly would commit this mistake, that they would use the plural verb. But here you are to use singular verb rather than using the plural verb. Why? Because the main subject is expression. The expression of mosques, houses, and parks is not without some effect. So this is the subject here, that is expression. Okay, the next one. A good book and a nice style of writing is an or are good for a person. So have a look at this sentence. A good book, this is a subject. Now, these two subjects have been connected by and, right? The word and. A good subject, book, and a nice style of writing. This is another subject. So when you join two different subjects with and, what you do? You use plural verb rather than using the singular verb. But there are some cases that you are to use singular verb when you are connecting two nouns with and. So what exactly the rule really is? The rule is that when you are joining two nouns, if they are representing two different ideas, if two different nouns are representing two different ideas, then you have to use plural verb. But if two nouns they represent same idea, you have to use singular verb in that specific case. For example, a poet and philosopher. A poet and philosopher was died. Rather than using verb, you are to use was, because the same person is poet and that same person is also a philosopher. Okay, so here there are two expressions. A good book is one expression or one subject, and a nice style of writing is another expression or another, we can say, subject or another idea. So that's why we are to use the plural verb rather than using. So what we are having a look, that is subject verb agreement. So this is that how subject agrees to verb, that what verb should be used according to the subject. Okay, now my only hope is an or are my children, right? So this is one of the controversial sentence that most of the student can commit mistake here. My only hope, only hope, this is your main subject. My only hope is my children. So another subject here, another sentence. My children is, am, or are my only hope, right? My children are my only hope, because here in this sentence, the children is the subject, and you may know that child is used as a singular, children is used as plural. But there are some people who commit this mistake. They, what they do, they use or they write s along with children. They commit this mistake. So this is very serious mistake. The singular of children is child and the plural is children without s. Okay, so singular is child and plural is children. So there is no use of s. If you are to use apostrophe, then you can use apostrophe s with children. Otherwise, the plural of children is plural, or the singular of children is child. Okay. The next one. So here the subject was children. So you are to use, that is plural verb, right? 4 miles is am or are a long distance for them to cover. 4 miles. Actually, this is a unit, actually, right? 4 miles is a whole covered distance or a unit of distance. So as a whole distance, what we use singular verb rather than using the plural verb. 4 miles is a long distance for them to cover. So this is very important sentence for uh, different types of papers or exam that examiner asks such kind of question, right? My friend and advisor is MR a good man. Okay, so here we can clearly see that the the subject that you are referring is the singular subject, my friend and advisor. So the same person is friend and the advisor is the same person. So and is connecting two subjects, but these two subjects are representing the same idea or the same person. So what we do, we are to use the singular verb rather than using the plural one. For example, how can we differentiate that whether it's representing the same idea or not? Let's say my friend and like for example a friend and an advisor. So if you are using article a or an before the both of the subjects which are being connected by and, then they represent different ideas, we can say, right? So there we have to use the plural verb. Okay. Well, the next sentence is bread and butter is am or are sold here, right? Bread and butter, actually bread and butter, these two are different nouns, certainly. But if we have a look at this in another sense, this is also an idiom. Bread and butter means livelihood, right? So bread and butter is am or are sold here. So bread and butter is not used as livelihood, right? Idioms actually are followed by singular verb, right? So bread and butter, here bread is representing one idea, butter is representing another idea. So these two are different nouns here. So when you connect two different nouns with and these two different nouns give different ideas, what we do, we use plural verb rather than using singular verb. So, bread and butter is not easy to achieve these days. Here, bread and butter is giving one idea. Bread and butter is not easy to achieve these days. It means livelihood is not easy to achieve these days. So, you are to uh, consider the difference between these two. Opening my purse was or were exciting. Now, opening my purse, the whole of it is a singular actually, right? So, opening, it resembles the same, this one handwriting. So, these two are what we can say that the gerund. Gerund is followed by singular verb actually. So, here, opening my purse was exciting rather than were exciting. Okay. Fire and water do not or does not agree. Fire is one idea, water is another idea. So when you connect two different subjects or when they represent two different ideas, what we do? We use plural verb rather than using singular verb. So do not agree. So I hope that it makes sense to all of you. So what we studied today, that subject verb agreement, and I tried to cover some of the rules here. There are plenty of other rules that I could not able to cover in this video. I certainly cannot cover all of the rules in a simple video. Certainly, I'll be uploading some more videos regarding subject verb agreement and also grammar. So stay tuned. Thank you very much for watching the video.